Obama saying Russia has trained the separatists and armed them big, really big, with anti-aircraft weapons. But President Obama stopping short of directly blaming President Putin for the takedown of that passenger jumbo jet. Senator Rand Paul joins us. Good evening, sir.
Glad to be with you.
Has this event, this horrible murder of 298 people, has that made Putin more powerful in the world, less powerful, emboldened him what?
You know, I think it isolates him from the rest of the world, and the rest of the world needs to speak with one voice, one unified voice. And we've condemned it, and we obviously think it's terrible what has happened. But really, Europe needs to be more involved in this as well. The whole world needs to come forward and say, my goodness, you can't just shoot down commercial airliners. And so, no, I think it's something that I can't imagine what type of rebuke needs to be, but it needs to be as severe as it can be.
Like what, though? President Obama said from the Rose Garden today, that practically, he condemned it, as he should. But, what's the penalty?
Well, I think the only penalty that works in a situation like this, unless you're ready to, send troops into Ukraine, which I think most Americans are not, myself included. But I think the key really here is Europe. Europe does a lot of trade, and it's a bilateral thing. Everybody talks about, well, Europe requires and needs this gas. Well, Russia needs the money that comes from selling the gas. Trade's a two-way street, and the Europeans, if they want to, have a realistic or an admonishment that has teeth, they need to talk about trade sanctions on Russia.
There's something really perverse about the fact you shoot down 298 people in a plane, and you probably go unpunished. You shoot someone down on the street, whether it's in Europe or in D.C., in the United States, a single person, all of a sudden you're tried for murder and you're put away for life.
We've had other airliners being shot down, but I think historically, and some of these have been a long time ago, but my memory was that there was a significant and fairly immediate apology for saying we made mistakes. That this wasn't an intentional downing of an airline. I guess it's hard for them to say that, too, because for the separatists, this wasn't a mistake. But you have to wonder how this is going to further the goal of the separatists to have taken down and killed 298 innocent people.
All right, let's go to Israel and Gaza. What are your thoughts about that tonight, how the U.S. is handling it? Are we looking strong and weak like leaders, or feckless and just bystanders?
I don't know that when every civil war there has to be something that America is going to do. The one thing I've said is not America's role to criticize our allies for defending themselves. And Israel lives every day, with bombs being rained down on them. And I don't think this was initiated by Israel. It was initiated by Gaza. And it seems to have come out of sort of the anger over first the 3 Israeli teenagers' death and then the Palestinian teenager death. But it also doesn't serve any purpose from a rational point of view for Hamas. How do they think they're going to win? All it does is then sort of justify sort of the civil war that occurred.
Well, they're keeping going. Hezbollah is backing them up. It doesn't seem like there's any end in sight. So how does this end? Is it?
Well,
do we have to rely on Secretary Kerry getting a ceasefire while he's in Cairo tonight? Or?
Well, I think we should try to be part of facilitating a ceasefire if we can. The other way it ends is Hamas runs out of rockets, and there have been some who have said that they have 2 or 3 weeks supply. And they say one of the perverse things of having so many jihadists in the Middle East is that there's competition for money, and Hamas is out of money and will shortly be out of missiles. This is also why Hamas joined the unity government. There were news reports saying they joined because they want our money. And that's what I've been trying to stop. I've got legislation that says no money should go to terrorists, and specifically no money to Hamas.
All right, let me turn to the Urban League. You're going there Friday, and in the Urban League, which has a lot of attention on these cities, and just this past weekend in Chicago, 40 people shot, including an 11-year-old girl dying at a slumber party, a bullet apparently going through and hitting her. What are we going to do? Why are you going to the Urban League? What are we doing about Chicago? Or what should we do?
One, our big cities have a lot of problems across America, main problems being poverty, unemployment, but also violence. The poverty and the unemployment may make the violence worse, and so what I've said is that Republicans have some answers for this. And so I'll talk about how we bring economic opportunity to these cities by dramatically lowering taxes. I have a plan for bailing out Detroit, $1.3 billion. Not from Atlanta, not from Houston, but just by leaving money in Detroit that never gets sent to Washington, letting their own money help bail themselves out.
And it's not common to see Republicans at the Urban League. You and GOP Chairman Reince Priebus are the only two. You're the only elected one.
But I'm excited about it because what we're doing is saying we are going to compete for the vote of people who live in the cities. If you look at that red-blue map across the United States, we win every rural county in America and we lose every big city. if we want to compete as a party, if Republicans want to compete as a party, we have to compete in the big cities, which means we need to have a policy prescription to how we're going to cure poverty, or we're going to diminish and lessen poverty.
Meet the Press has you as the GOP front runner this week.
That might be bad luck. I don't know. But it's better than not being considered. And at this point, all I know is I want to make the party bigger. So I want to be a big enough voice that people listen to say the only way the Republican Party wins is by becoming a more diverse party.
Senator, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you.